just brings your attention to Gandhi's from a leadership role. What are other, from your view, when you look at your own leadership, are there anything that you feel may have been emulated either consciously or unconsciously by somebody?
I find it very difficult to think of myself as a leader, quite honestly. I was always part of a group and I've always worked as a team. And I mean, that's the way I like it, and I presume that Gandhi would have approved of that.
Yeah, but Gandhi himself was no leader.
Yes, exactly. And
He
you know, when he
insisted
was,
he
he
had no
was in
title.
jail, he immediately, wrote to my great uncle and said, "Okay, now I'm locked up here. You take the lead the march." And there was no question of senior and junior and whatever. So I think that's. The more I read about about Gandhi, the more I feel that he was not only a very lovable person, but a very practical and kind of person that you would really like to have around the day to sort out the mess that we are in. Because I think we are in a mess. And I think the directions that we are going in are so dangerous and short-sighted. We were talking the other day, some of us who are all children of that first generation. My parents in 47, it never occurred to them that they wanted to live in any other country except India. Thought of going to Pakistan. My father was offered foreign ministership in Pakistan, and he was, he said that. The thought is of a country based on a single religion is claustrophobic, and there's no way. But I think that generation would have been pretty horrified at what is happening now, and where people are questioning. It cuts both ways. That people are questioning the right of Muslims to be here, and at every level, you have this question that people ask, even in a village sometimes, that say that, in the nicest possible way, but sort of saying that when there was Pakistan, which was made for you, and you sort of separated the countries, then why didn't you go? Why are you still hanging around here? And when you say that, because we love what India stands for, we didn't want to go. So they find that very difficult to understand. But and there is a sadness that today many Muslim families, Hyderabad, where my mother's family comes from, they hardly meet young Muslim people, professionals there. They've all gone. They haven't gone to Pakistan, but they've gone to Canada and America and Australia because they are concerned about the fact that they are now.
They're treated away.
Yeah. So I think that. So when I have to go back to what I was saying, we were talking about why all this has happened. And I do think it was a failure of the first independence generation, who, whether it was Nehru or whether it was Maulana Azad or Vallabhbhai Patel or whoever, there were some things that they thought were so obvious that they didn't bother to explain it and put it into the educational system and to spread, which is why words like secular and liberal and syncretic have remained in the English language and are not concepts and are often made fun of by a lot of people today. And you are considered, you are this secular libertad is, I think, the word of insult that people heard. And they didn't, and so they didn't think of it. Gandhi, on the other hand, because these people were all slightly westernized, they had been brought up with these concepts, they took it for granted. Gandhi came from a very different kind of background, and he was a deeply devout Hindu in the way that Nehru certainly wasn't. And he was able to put across all these things in a way that made it understandable. That, Hinduism and being Indian are very compatible and actually absorb all the strands of liberalism and multi-theism, etc., etc. And I think that's where we really needed him today, to be able to say that actually you're misunderstanding the concept of Hinduism. and it
Buddhism
is
has
not
always been
yeah, it's,
extremely
inclusive.
inclusive of everything
It's
in the
not
world.
an exclusive religion. In fact,
Yeah,
it
itself
is
is-
not even. I mean, it's what appeals so much to people like me that it absorbs and accepts everything and embraces everything, and that there's no single narrow, way of being
It's
a
not a
Hindu
dogma
or
or
whatever. Yes, I mean the ritual and the things, beautiful as they are a very small part of actually the ethos and philosophy of Hinduism. So I think that's again where we really need Gandhi with his common sense, but also his deep faith to put that
Faith of
message
humanity.
across. Yeah. No, I don't think
It
so.
was continuous.
I think it was just continuous, and more and more as I grew older and I hope wiser, his wisdom infiltrated so much. Because as I said, as a child and in my teens and all, he was almost like a part of the family, and sort of a great grandfather who was gone, and so these family stories were there, and one didn't really think of it very much, but. The
I
more
like the way
I
you're
sort of
describing
read,
as being fun and loving and fun, and it seems to be quite a bit of from the family. When I listen about it, it is similar.
yeah. Well,
They're
The-
growing up. They're
the
looking at
first
the world.
the first thing I'll say is that I was very fortunate growing up that because my father was in the foreign service, I lived in lots of countries and I saw them all. And when you come back to India, you see your own country with your own eyes, but perhaps with the eyes of foreigners also. And I think that very often we are slightly apologetic about India,
Used to be
and
quite a bit.
and that we compare it always with the West or with and say that, or even with Japan or something, and say, see why are we like this and all that. And yes, there are lots of things in India that are wrong and that we have to change and we have to develop. But there are extraordinary things. This is an extraordinary country, and there's no other country in the world which has so much richness, so much variety. And you can take it from the very mundane thing like all the fruits and vegetables we have, where the range is, I think everything in the world is available and grows here. And we have lots of things which don't grow anywhere else.
It's
And we have skills and materials and writings and languages and music and sport and thing again where we have taken the best of everything there's in the world, because we are a very eclectic country. We're brilliant at taking something like, say, the English language and turning it into such a powerful tool that we win Booker prizes for writing in English, which is not our language. But we have our own language with very rich uh, philosophies, mythologies, just plain fairy stories and all that should be circling around the world. So we have all that and we should be very proud about it. But it's not enough to be proud, and I get very irritated when I hear this phrase, I'm proud to be an Indian, because it's a lot more that we
quite
need to do, apart from being proud. We have to build on that. We have to take these things and use them and bring them forward into this 21st century and introduce them to the world as very exciting concepts, very exciting arts, very exciting literature, and very exciting thought processes. And so I think this young generation, one thing I'd say to them is discover your own country and don't let other people discover it for you or interpret it for you. Because that's quite dangerous, because often they're beating their own drum and following some agenda of their own. So discover it for yourself and make use of it, because it makes you a more exciting person.